welcome to In or Out, the European Ultimate Federation's show about the European Ultimate Club Series. I'm Ravi Vasudevan here for the all-important show of the season, the EUCF Reveal show. Who's in, who's out, who won the wild cards, everything you need to know here, and we'll reveal it to you. You might notice that the rankings are not public yet because we like to have this special fun reveal show to reveal it team by team. We're also going to announce who the Division 2 teams are for each division this year. It's a new addition to the European club season this year. And to do so, let's bring on the guest. Again, he did the announcement show last year. We thought that was a lot of fun. We're bringing back the original Eurozone crew together. Lorcan Murray going to join me here. How's it going, buddy? General Mischief.
It's going very well. I'm very excited. I'm here to represent the lay people as only I can, because as I think a lot of our viewers can appreciate, maths is something that simply haunts the memories of our teenage and childhood years. So I'm very averse to it. But after poring over all of the data, the facts, the figures, I'm confused, but also excited. So I'm very curious. There's a lot to go on. There have been some crazy results all season. It's setting up an absolutely fantastic weekend, 3-day weekend. 2 weekends, I suppose I should say, to end the year. I want to get into it because, like we were saying, you haven't updated the final rankings. A lot of action happened over the weekend. I'm curious to see how it impacted. I got a couple of questions for you as well, and maybe some for the audience. So let's get to it.
We ran the rankings on Saturday night. I did the show then with Nemo, and people saw what had happened. And already there were some crazy results. And then things got even crazier on Sunday. And it was a great last day of the regular season. And it's hopefully going to lead to a phenomenal UCF. A lot of wild things happening, especially in the open division with the wild cards. So we'll get to all of that right now. Let's pull up the presentation, and let's not make the fans wait for too much longer. The EUCF first division and second division finals, and here we go. We're going to start with the first division for the women's division, and probably the beginning of this set won't be too complicated. People probably know who they're at, but remember that the way we're going to do pools is that the first, second, third, and fourth seed are locked in A, B, C, and D pools. And then after that, there's seeding groups. So like 5 to 8 is one group. They'll be shuffled around, randomized. 9 to 12 is one group. They'll be shuffled around, randomized. And 13 to 16 is another group. So like you can either be in the, different seeding groups, but only the top seed will be totally locked in. So without further ado, let's start things off. No surprise, keeping their one seed is BFD Shout. Do have one loss on the season, but with these crushing victories they have against Hrut women, really cementing themselves at top of the ranking here. In number 2, we've got Hrut, the aforementioned from Amsterdam, 9-4 record. We've got Jinx Midnight, the Elite Invite winners, 11-0 record, but not quite, winning their games by enough, and not having those big wins like BFD Shout did. So sitting there a little bit low on rank number 3. And then fourth, Iceni, 8-2. I think they bounced up to the third ranking on Saturday, but then somehow Jinx managed to get themselves back up to number 3 again. So there it is, the top 4 seeds, of the women's division: Shout, Hrut, Jinx, and Iceni. Reactions, Lorcan?
I think a lot of us saw those coming, especially over the course of the season. I think big surprise, certainly to me, is the 3-0 record Shout hold over Hrut, especially after Hrut, I don't know if you want to call them a super team or anything, but certainly a lot of talent and really brought in some fantastic players last year, and were very, very impressive on their way to the final, powering along. So curious as to that one. Jinx as well. I mean, they're just trying to kind of get over that hump, or so close the last 2 seasons. Still trying to recreate, I think Woodcheek is like the last German women's team to win. That would have been like 06 or something. So trying to recreate that magic. We'll see how they do. They look incredibly strong. Again, maybe we talk about what happened this weekend shortly. BFD Shout look absolutely incredible. Certainly look like they're going to be quite a show on the European scene. Unfortunately, nowhere else. And finally, Iceni, it's good to see them coming back. I feel like they've been trying to regenerate for several years now and build upon past successes. Obviously, they won several European titles in a row. I do feel they perhaps aren't as in contention as the other 3, but they played group very close more recently. Their big loss to Shout will happen quite a while ago, so we'll see how they get on.
All right, so that's seeding group 1 for the women's division. We'll go to seeding group 2, and I'll let you introduce the teams here for this one.
So we got Moon Cup from Brussels, record 6-5, made it to the final last year with a big step up for that team. Young talent coming through. A couple of veterans as well. Tequila Boom Boom, who will be going to work next year. Very impressive. Again, another young talent that's been really standing themselves out. The 9-2 record, doing Rimini very, very proud. Yaka, who I think a lot of people would be surprised to see them fall down this far, especially with the record of 9-2, but perhaps kind of on the opposite side of that curve you go on through as a club, or like the waves you go on through as a club, where Moon Cup are on the rise now. Yaka perhaps trailing off in the opposite direction, but I'm sure they'll be very angry to hear that, and we'll take it up at the end of September. And then East Block, who I have several follow-up questions about based on what happened this weekend, but we'll leave those for now. I did see them at VSB, Vienna Spring Break, phenomenal tournament. Definitely go if you can. Wasn't super impressed with them. That's where they lost out on their Worlds opportunity against 3SB. Yeah, so that is the second seeds.
Yeah, I'll mention here on East Block, I got some messages from one of their captains that apparently at Vienna Spring Break, they were bringing in 10 or so new players who had never really played with them before. They apparently had a very different looking team at Summer Tour. So came into Summer Tour knowing that tournament counts a little more, and realized that, this is where we're going to come full strength. They just didn't have those numbers at Vienna Spring Break. They have they still have a lot of turnover. Everybody talks about Tulista, but there's actually more, like I think 10 players that left the team from last year's success to this year's success. So power to them that they have with their, they have some of their other stars on that team, but with what they've done, that they've managed to have so much turnover, but then bring back this much success. I think I was surprised to see after the Vienna Spring Break results that they shot down so much. I was like, they still have some pretty good players on this team, and now showing, actually they're in that quarterfinal conversation and probably looking to maybe steal a 4th spot from Iceni in the semis. I think they wouldn't count themselves out for that, but just a reminder here, this is not pools. Like, it's not that Shout and Moon Cup are in a pool or whatever. This group will be randomized. We will do a pool reveal show later on. But go ahead, Lorcan, your thoughts here, looking at the
I was going to ask,
picture.
who do you think could steal a quarterfinal? But I'll actually wait until we see the seeding group 3 as well before we dive into that.
Yeah, for here, who can steal a semifinal? I think Moon Cup, Yaka, East Block, Tequila. I think all these teams can probably steal the one off Iceni. I don't know if anyone can really contend with the top 3, but I think that race for 4th is a tight one. And I actually do think Moon Cup is one that could really challenge themselves into the final if they get a good draw.
Yeah, no one saw them coming last year either. Well, kind of. I mean, you have the Bornos, they've got a lot of talent, but still. Leduc can play defense, I think, on anybody.
Yeah, for sure. Now we go into seeding group 3. We've got the 9th ranked team, Sharks Ultimate Barcelona, with an 8-2 record, coming in at number 9. Bristol coming in there at number 10. 3SB, the other Czechs, who do have the Wook bid, right? They did win that one off of East Block at Vienna Spring Break. Here, lower ranked than them in the European season, but we'll be happy to go to Worlds next year anyways. And rounding it out, we have Smog, who were a lot closer to the cusp last year, but really pushing themselves now from that. I think they were down in the 4-seed region, now cementing themselves in that 3-seed region. So moving up a bit are the women from Manchester and the rest of Northern England. So here we got the picture now, 12 out of the 16 teams. What do you see, Lorcan?
Out of those, any of the teams in the lower one, like Sharks, I think, really impressive season. Obviously, whenever the Spanish teams show up and they're starting to emerge more and more, it's fantastic to see, especially that unique style. Again, to go back to East Block, they play that quick style. Bringing in a lot of new players can make that difficult. Sharks have shown they can do that up to a certain level. They do hit the roadblocks of the more established powers throughout the season. Bristol, high variance, I think, for Bristol. 3SB, if the shots are coming down, they're going to work out for them. If not, like, again, a little bit Tartu-y, should we say, in the mixed division. But then finally, Smog. I think that's really impressive for Smog, especially because, that classic, we're splitting, we're going open and women's after being a very impressive mixed team. The only team to ever send 2 squads to World Championships, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to see the success in the women's side, especially, I think Helen Thompson plays for Jinx, I think, who is a long-standing real stalwart of the club. So fantastic performance by them. Maybe 3SB in the right conditions can steal. Maybe alternate positions, right? Like if it's really windy, upwind, downwind, very clear. Like 3SB could steal a quarterfinal perhaps, and then the inverse of that for Sharks.
Yeah, and Bristol, I think, is a bit low ranked because they played their summer tour without Molly Wedge, who was in Chengdu playing with the Chinese Canadian World Games team. I think that makes a big difference for Bristol. Not to say that she's their only player, but she's their best player, and that can make them pop a little more and see if they can challenge the seeding group too. Yeah, I'm very excited to see Sharks. I saw the results early in the season. I saw that they only were playing, I think, one tournament and then summer tour, and they wouldn't have enough games, so they actually went to summer tour early to play BFD Cheetahs in a couple friendlies, single games to make sure they got their 10 games in. So they're working really hard to earn this spot for EUCF. I'm very excited to see what a Spanish team can do at the European stage on grass. So let's round things out. This is where things get exciting, and probably people are waiting with bated breath to see who are those last teams in. So introduce them here, Lorcan.
So we've got Spice coming at you out of London, the second London team to make it. A very even record, but a very impressive weekend just gone by.
Yeah, I think that they were nowhere close to the top 16 going into this weekend, but had a phenomenal one and really did what they needed to earn a solid spot.
Singed a couple of wicked tongues who made the mistake of back talking them. Catch up Graz, long-standing club, fantastic out of Austria, 6 and 9. They've been kind of going up and down as well if you look back through the rankings, but huge deal to make the top 16. Congratulations. Fabulous from Bern. I am enjoying the Swiss revitalization that seems to be going on to an extent, happening a bit more in the open division, but huge fan of Fabulous. Obviously, they used to be right at the top under those Olivia Hauser-led teams, so I'd be very curious to see, are they also going through that younger revamp that we're seeing a couple other Swiss sides do, and how they get on.
Yeah, and I know on Saturday they were out of the top 16, so they played their way back into it on Sunday. So a little bit of a bouncy weekend for Fabulous. Last one in.
Heidi Synergy, get in there. Sorry, because I must have been yesterday or something. I was listening to the talk, and like you and Dom Knight trying to work out, like, have Heidi's ever gotten a team into EUCF? And it was Heidelbergen or something, like the combo team with Gummy Bershin. So coming in on a 3-8 record and a rating of minus 98.57. But look, getting the wins when they count, playing the tight games, and I think that's such a great thing about this algorithm, is like the tight games really stand to you. So huge congratulations to the Eppelheim women.
So here we have it, Lorcan, the full slate of teams. I see our heads are there blocking. Maybe Nemo can get us out of the way so we can show Heidi Synergy. See you, Heidi, Lorcan. That's not exactly how it works, but yeah, this is the full slate of teams here. 16 teams. Do you want to mention a correction from our producer here that Helen Thompson's on Moon Cup, not on Jinx, so she will be.
I apologize. Got the flags the wrong way around.
But yeah, I mean, what do you think here? Maybe Nemo, can you move us to the top left corner or something? I think that's where there's nothing in the way, so that'd be good if we could get out of the way here.
Something I wanted to ask you about, especially with regards to the women's division, is it seemed like in the top 16 it had the highest disparity with opponent strength. And in the past, like last year we were looking, we said women's is the most open division. There was between 5 and like 6, 7 teams who could make it in. First off, what does that disparity mean? No, I vaguely understand it, but how do you think that high variance in the disparity or in the opponent's strength is going to play out over the weekend? Is it a matter of like Fabulous hit their form and they knock out Tequila Boom Boom in a?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to talk about the strength of the the ratings that are going in there, I think what you're mentioning is that like from number 1 to number 16, there's a bigger difference between the rating scores. Is that what you're mainly talking about there?
Not so much there's a bigger difference in the rating scores. That there's the rating scores kind of skip about. So if you look at like higher ones, they'd be like low minus numbers. And then you look at East Block and they're 360. So I was just curious as to how that differential.
Yeah, so the bigger that difference is, the like bigger the difference is between those teams. So that does tend to say that probably the top seeded teams are more heavily favored against the bottom seeded teams than in other divisions. That just means that there's a bigger difference there. And I think that does jive with what I've seen from the women's division this year. I think last year there was really a full top 8 that I thought all had a chance to win a title. This year, I kind of see 3 that have stacked even more than they were last year. And I don't quite see as open of a field. I think Moon Cup is probably up there with them. I know they're ranked below Iceni. Haven't seen much of Iceni play this year, to be fair. So maybe they are another. I mean, the math says that they're another team that's in there. So yeah, I think that what it basically means is that these bottom seeds are a bit further away from the top seeds than others. So probably it'll be harder for them to get a game off. But you know what? When we get to EUCF, throw the rankings out. Who cares? Now it's time to just win your games, win your pools, play your ultimate, and ratings be damned. It's time to just play the games. Yeah.
You heard it here first, everybody. Ravi Vasudevan. Ratings be damned.
All right. See some boos in the chat from this. Sorry to hear that. Maybe some consolation we can show now the second division of the women's division. We're not going to go through team by team, but we'll go through just showing the big picture. We've got Odebrew, we've got Gentle, we've got Dublin Gravity Women, Hot Mess Express, Sick, Cheetahs, Horizon, and Box Vienna. That'll make up the 8 teams that are invited to the E2CF, as people are calling it. What's do you like BUCF or E2CF? I think most people like the E2CF.
I like E2CF.
Yeah.
I think it's nice. Straight conversion. A little surprised to see LMU miss out.
Yeah, they only had 9 games. That was their big issue.
Right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
So they would have been in there with the rankings, but they didn't get their 10th game in. So the slate of teams will invite. Probably if some of them drop out, we will maybe go to those teams that only got 9 games. So we'll see how we fill this division out. I really hope we get buy-in, because I think it's a cool initiative to give more teams a finish to their season that is, at their level. But we'll have to see the interest from the teams this year. For those of you in the women's division that might be tuning out now, I will say this: the end of each division, please by this Friday, the 22nd of August, let us know if you're accepting or rejecting your bid to either EUCF, because we need to then shuffle the invites around if we have to. We hope that everybody just wants to come, but we know the reality is sometimes that's not always the case. So please confirm your spot by this Friday. All right, Lorcan, any final thoughts on the women's division before we wrap up here and move on to the next one?
I want to push back on your top 3 comment.
Okay, let's go back to Div 1.
I'm finding struggle to do it. So I think Moon Cup Iceni maybe just a little bit below, and then, like you say, it falls out there. And then, because we already talked about that, just looking at the second one, it's fantastic to see some of the club teams represented there. Some like really long-standing club teams, Orebro, Gravity, Box, all standing up. Then also a couple of younger ones, or certainly ones I'm not as familiar with. Like, I don't know who Hot Mess Express are, if I'm going to be honest with you, but I adore their name. So that's fantastic. So if you are able to make it to the tournament, it's going to be a fantastic time. It's a beautiful city, and you catch it right at the end of the summer. So I think it's just well worth the weekend trip.
Yeah, I mean, so the top, I think there's 3 that can vie for a title. I think there's many more that can vie for a semifinal spot. And once you're in the semifinal, it's one game. You can find yourself in the final. So I do think the race for semis is at least 5 teams deep, if not 6, because I haven't seen Sharks, and I think Bristol will be punch up their weight. And 3SB, you never know. They could also come out swinging, especially like you said, if it's windy and they have their zone.
And they're going to come out swinging.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Will any of the punches land? We'll see.
They might be landing. We'll see. We'll see.
Very good team.
All right, we have John Doc 1-1 on comments versus the field right now, so we'll see how that.
Oh yeah, that was a bet we had beforehand. Over under who comments more. I will say John Doc Poker is an old tool they use in Ireland to beat bold children.
So we're going to go into the mixed division. Coming up first, the 1 seed. I mean, the main question here was who was going to get the 1 and the 2. It was Mosquitoes and TFC Taucher fighting it out. Mosquitoes, even though they have the weaker record and I think had lost to TFC twice, had a bit fewer close games than TFC did. So overall, with the whole resume, Mosquitoes end up on top. TFC Taucher with 2 wild cards under their belt, Elite Invite and Summertoe Heilbronn, make it here in the number 2 spot. Deep Space getting the 3 ranked spot. Nemo, if you can move our heads down to the lower right again, that would be great. So we're not blocking the ranking numbers here. Sorry to keep our producer busy.
You're torturing the poor man.
Yeah. And last in the top 4, we've got the Kus Padova Rangers. Ooh, putting us in the middle there. I like that. Kus Padova Rangers. Pavan staying on the team the whole season this year, not moving over to TFC. So helping the Italians out. There's our top 4 seeds: Mosquitoes, TFC, Deep Space, and Rangers.
like a lot of teams who know each other really well either grew up playing together, like if you're talking about TC or you're talking about Padova Rangers, or else have come together and played together for quite a long time. If you're talking about Mosquitoes, you're talking about Deep Space. I'm very curious to see how Mosquitoes get on. I was watching them a little bit last year, and I think they finished 5th, which was pretty impressive. So to see them take this next step up, Mix probably the most changeable. So be very interesting to see how they've grown and like what they've learned from kind of getting that first taste up at the elite level for a while. TC obviously want to avenge their universe point loss last year. Deep Space looking to become, and this is something we can dive into a little bit later on as well in the division, but nobody's ever won the mixed title 3 years in a row.
All right.
Brute went on, off, on. They actually went on, off, on, I think, but
they finished off.
They finished off.
Their last was Deep Space beating them on Universe before they switched to the Open Women's. So I know they finished off
2 years ago, and then last year Deep Space won on Universe. Both Universe points involved them giving up the disc and getting it back. So it's a matter of like they're going for the three-peat. Bulls, baby, Michael Jordan, except they are probably the most vulnerable looking three-peat champions we've had. Like if you think about those Iceni teams, you think about those Clapham teams, there was a point where it's like, are they beatable? Should we all give up and just start playing waffle bat or whatever that weird tennis thing is for fat people? So yeah, really interesting, really nice blend of teams who all know each other quite well, which can be a problem in the mixed division.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, right now, if everything goes to seed, we will get TFC Deep Space in the semifinal. Mosquitoes did well enough to get that 1 seed, so they get the Rangers semi if all goes to plan. But not when has everything all gone to plan in the mixed division? Never. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, start us off here in the second rung.
We got Disconnection coming at you from Freiburg. I mean, really established. If you've been playing mixed, if you've been playing Ultimate in general, you know who Disconnection are.
I think stepping up a bit though this year. I don't think they were as high in the rankings last time. Getting up to the 5 seed. I think they were somewhere around 8 at the.
Yes, I was going to say I don't know. I kind of consider 5 to 10ish, generally in around the same area. But you're right. Like they're moving to the top of the elite pack. Yeah. I would say. Leamington Lemmings. Very curious. Obviously, last year they're a bit of a breakout season, building on the success of the year before, and really impressive. Won that tour, but this year kind of seemed to have fallen off a little bit. Had, I think, the biggest fall in ranking because they came in like 4th seeded in the build-up last year, and I think they finished like 13th or 12th or something. I should probably check that before I get some angry messages from some annoyed lemmings. But my point remains, yeah, it was 4th to 13th. They wound up falling. What have they learned from that experience? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Then Savage Ultimate. Wonderful team. You've seen a lot of them over the last few years. They've really been trying to build. I think a lot of this comes like that focus Poland had on mix following the World Games, and you see the generation that followed it. And will they be able to get forward, like in the mixed division, depending on the intensity of the competition? We've seen the likes of Leftovers or something be able to make a big run up towards the top. We haven't seen too much outside of Salaspils from Eastern Europe in a while, so it'll be interesting to see how Savage get on and what they've learned and grown into over the season. And Pook, who again, long-standing, established, probably not too happy with last season, but coming into this again, like I would find it very difficult to pull apart those teams from 5 to 8 right now.
Well, here we have the look, and like for you, I was surprised. I'd heard a lot about the roster moves from Lemmings this year. I think they actually might have finished higher in the rankings than last year. I can't remember. Maybe last year they were in the top 4. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I know they won the Elite Invite last year, and everybody was thinking they were like, okay, this is the new team. And then had, like you said, an awful EUCF ending, I think going winless in pool play and not even doing that well in the consolation bracket. So we'll see if they can do better. Maybe all these players that left them were getting in their way, and we'll see how they do in Euros. I think Savage, a great team. Last year was a surprise to me to qualify for the Elite Invite. Like I didn't know about them much going into the EUCF last year, but they pushed themselves into that top 8. And I think they've been playing right with all the top teams this year. So curious to see how they're going to get in. And yeah, Pook and Disconnection. Again, I think here I also see, like the women's division, kind of a top 3 above the rest. And a lot of play for that last semifinal spot. But definitely, I don't think it's quite as big of a gap here. I think that the teams like Disconnection and Pook, Savage, Lemmings, they could all take a game off one of these top 3 teams and mix things up here in pool play.
I think so too. Something I'd be curious about is like Savage Ultimate always had fantastic athletes, some absolutely massive grabs. Have they developed the elite level disc skills that can help the fundamentals and help you hang with the likes of Disconnection once it gets to 10, 11 late on the first day. And the first day is going to be big for a lot of these teams who are in that Group 2, Group 3 section.
Yep. All right, let's go into seeding Group 3. And here, I think I'm surprised for a lot of people that they ended up this low in the rankings, but haven't had the best season, even though they've picked up, it seems like, more talent than last year. After the third place finish at EUCF, Tartu Turbulence 7-4 from Estonia. Reading Ultimate, another one that's dropped off quite a bit. Last year, I think we're upset they didn't get the top 4 seeds. And this year, probably a bit happier they just qualified with the 10th ranking, the way things have been going. So Reading dropping off a bit. And Glasgow, another UK team here at rank number 11. And to round things out, rank number 12, we've got Disco Bolo from Bologna. I think, I can't remember, were they at the UCF last year with the mixed division? I can't recall.
If they were near the bottom of it. I can actually look that up real quick.
So here we go. We've got a couple UK teams in Tartu and Bologna. And I got to say, I know maybe it's just the familiarity of their talent, but you got Helen Terra, you got Laszlo Kublitska, you've got Jakob Tom, you've got Marin Raba on a team. I would not want to draw Tartu Turbulence as a 3 seed in my pool.
No, you just gotta hope you catch them on an off bounce, right? Because they've got like the ability to put Hucks to the break side, like few other teams can replicate. But Hucks don't always work out. They're definitely, again, high variance. They're a bit more vulnerable. I think they're kind of similar to Glasgow in that way. Disco Bolo weren't there last year. Reading Ultimate, one of the biggest clubs in Europe, constantly bringing people up through that style, trying to get them to play with the fundamentals and then go from there. Really good at harnessing and like elevating the talents of the players on their team, but perhaps in a bit of a transition right now by their lower seeding. But like, you don't want to, if you're trying to feel your way into a tournament, you don't want to come up against a team who's as locked in as that and always know what they're doing. I think Glasgow, like I said, a bit more closer to Tartu. And then Disco Bolo, they're very fast. You can see from their record, they played some hard teams, but I imagine a lot of the people above them are looking at them and looking to blow past them.
Yeah, I think if I'm any of these pools, I would hope to draw Disco Bolo as my 3 seed. The other ones, all I think are pretty dangerous, and you wouldn't. Yeah, it's gonna be a dogfight in these mixed pool plays from what I'm seeing so far. All right, why don't you round us out here, Lorcan, with the seeding pool 4?
I would be delighted to. Heck from Edinburgh, who came last year, but it was great to see him show up to UCF at all, and obviously plenty of lessons to learn, and I believe a wildcard spot.
Over Reading. Reading was there. I thought that no team was going to come close to taking that wildcard spot from him, but Heck just flat out beating them.
There you go. Short trip from Stirling to Edinburgh.
Yeah, I think they're the closest to a home team there. So here's the surprising one.
Mixed. Yeah, all right. Taking them back. Zoo Mixed from Zurich. I'm sure we'll get into why that's so surprising a little bit later on. But huge congratulations. Fantastic to see them there. You can see not a club that's been going at it for very long, only established in 2019, and trying to get themselves set up. Are they the ones who wear like the really sick black and gold jerseys?
Yeah, I think I've seen them with the black and gold jersey, so I think that's probably who you're thinking of. I know that they beat Savage at Windmill, the Windmill semi. I think they also beat them at Summer Tour, but yeah, Zoo Mixed.
Seski from Strasbourg. Again, you pay attention to the mixed division, you know who they are. Perhaps people are a little bit surprised to see them this far down, especially after they made it all the way to the semi-final last year. But sure, look, we were happy to have them back at the tournament this year, so I'm not going to take for granted that they showed up at all.
Yeah, they're Gaël Lancelin has moved over to Mooncatchers. Maël Barentin moved over to, I believe, Moon Cup. I can't remember exactly which team she's playing for, but so a couple of their top players down, but the still got a good club there in Strasbourg and managed to qualify for the UCF.
And then finally, just so fittingly, leftovers from Brno. I see them at so many EUCFs, and I just love them. They always keep going. Just a fantastic team, big group of friends, always playing together. The record of 14-2 maybe does belie a little bit of the level of competition that they faced up to that point, and that's something that might be a cold bucket of will be. Look, I'll just say it will be a cold bucket of water over them at EUCF. But look, I got accustomed to seeing them not do so well, and then they had a fantastic tournament all the way up to bronze. Might be remembering that wrong. A couple of years ago. So definitely a team that keeps developing and just really plays together very well.
Yeah, so there is some controversy here, and I'm going to get into that now. I was going to have to get into it at some point. For those of you who saw the rankings on Saturday, you probably saw that I believe Seski was 14th, Leftovers 15th, and Four Hands from Poland in 16th. Zoom Mixed had scheduled a game against Colorado, and I'm just going to be totally transparent out there with everything that happened. Basically, they scheduled a game. To schedule a single game, you have to do it a week in advance. They put in the system that their game would be on Thursday. I mentioned on the show that the game was on Wednesday because I think I had heard that somewhere. And then some people in the chat from Four Hands were like, but in the system, it says they're playing on Thursday. And so then we found out on Wednesday, the day after the show, we inquired with ZooMix and found out that they were actually playing the game on Wednesday. Apparently, they wanted to go. This was a long planned trip to go play Colorado in Karlsruhe, and they thought that Colorado's practices were on Thursday night, so they scheduled the game for that in the system. But then it found out they were Wednesday, but they never informed UF about that until Four Hands kind of found out about it through the grapevine, and then we had to kind of investigate. The competition committee met. We decided that there was still a fair game, and it still should be counted in the rankings. Zoom Mixed beat Colorado 14-8. They were only one ranking point below Four Hands, so they jumped up 3 spots with that one game. They were predicted to beat Colorado on Universe and won 14-8, so that was enough to propel them, given how tight the ranking was down there. Four Hands, as you might guess, not really happy with all of this. Firstly, they weren't happy that teams were allowed to play after the last summer tour of the mixed division, but we had always said that every division has the end of season on this past Sunday but even though the mixed division happened to be done earlier, that wasn't part of the conversation. So that was still above board and according to our rules. But the whole thing of them getting the exception to play the game on the Wednesday when they claimed they were going to play it on the Thursday is a bit of an admin snafu. It's now been appealed, and there is an appeal committee made up of people from the EUF board and a few other people that are looking into the situation now. If they decide that they should not count that game of Zoom Mixed versus Colorado, there will be a swap, and Four Hands will be in EUCF and Zoom Mixed won't. That is all going to be decided very shortly, hopefully this week. But yeah, a lot of spice here in the mixed division. Look.
Huge amount of spice, enough to make the women's division quite jealous. I like advanced ultimate coaching coming in here 6 days in advance instead of 7, a disgrace. It is pedantry of the highest order, but I got to tell you, I'm kind of here for it. I appreciate that there's obviously like the big threat you make so clear. If we think you're throwing matches, we will kick both of you out. Yeah. So I in no way throw aspersions on that 14-8 victory. I feel like it's tough for the teams who are close because the obvious dynamic will be if you're not in yet, you'll do anything you can to get in. And if you are in, you don't want to risk that. So not trying to influence anything, but this will define how the rankings work going forward. Like if you guys rule in favor of Zurich, then you're setting it up so that teams know if you're in the bottom 4 of the 16 heading into the last weekend, set up some games or be ready for that. Like you have to be prepared. It's one of those, this is the inaugural instance. How you respond will set the tone going forward. I think like it is something you'd said before. You said it lasts until the Sunday. The difference between Wednesday and Thursday doesn't really matter. I think the matter is if you're already in, do you take the risk and try and secure yourself a little bit further, or do you rest on your laurels and hope for the best? And I don't think you should be rewarded for resting.
Doc saying Colorado had a chance to make EUCF with a massive win in that game, right? I mean, you have to do the math. Colorado was a bit further out. I think if they had won like 15-6, maybe, but it would have to be a very big win. But that's irrelevant. We treat people, unless we have evidence otherwise, that they are playing games fairly. No one's feeding each other or farming points. If we have whiffs of something like that, of course, like Lurkin said, both teams would be banned for probably more than one season. But we don't predict anything like that. So like you said, there's a lot going into it. Some people think that having a game after summer tour is the wrong thing. Some people think that, I mean, we do say after the last summer tour. It just so happened that both mixed summer tours happened in the first weekend, and there were still open and women's summer tours later, and everybody's season ends at the same time. So, but the question is, should you be allowed to play once your division is finished with summer tours? There's a lot of things we're going to talk about with these edge cases with the competition committee meeting, which is happening this weekend. So also make sure to give us any input if you want, if you know where to reach us, and if you think there's anything we need to consider for adapting the system next year. We do know that we're still working some stuff out in the second iteration of this system. But yeah, as it stands now, Zurich in, 4 hands out. If the appeal committee decides otherwise, that could flip. And I'll just lay that out there.
I do want to really quickly interject, like we are available right now as well. So much like some of the people jumping into the chat and sharing their thoughts with us, please do let us know. Call out Ravi, call them all. Gaming the system just so the Swiss can get in. Were you guys paid off? They give you some of that cheese.
The Swiss are not known for having money, I don't think.
No, really good trains, nice clocks, cows way higher than cows should be. I've never heard of money in the Swiss.
All right, let's go back to the mixed division. Looking at this full slate of teams, what are you excited about here, Lorcan? What are the storylines in the mixed division you're looking to look at Wrocław later in September?
I think the big storyline, or certainly the way I would paint it, is can Deep Space go back to back to back? And looking at the results over the last 2 years, the results this season, you think it's probably the most vulnerable that a team have been in that position. How open it is for anyone. Like I could see any of that top 4 losing a quarterfinal if it's just not going quite for them. Like I know you say you kind of see the top 3 and they're the term ones, but out of all of those divisions, mixed is the one that matters the most. Like one twisted ankle or one like bad step in a divot, and all of a sudden whole structures change. Like you're expecting Tartu to make quarterfinals, right? Looking through that, would you be surprised if like Reading also made quarterfinals?
Not at all.
So then that's how open this division is. And it's so crazy to me that, like, say we've had 4 winners in the last 5 years in the open division, and there seems like there's just so much more in the mix that could go in different directions. I would say TFC. I do also have to apologize because last season I kept saying, because I got misinformed by a certain bovine, that they were just kind of doing it as a last hurrah. He was doing it as a last hurrah. TFC are here to stay, apparently. Now, Pavan going back to Padova Rangers and then maintaining this fantastic season does show the depth of talent that they have and their ability. Now they've gone to EUCF before. They're probably my favorites going into this, but like a lot of teams maybe can't win it, but a lot of teams could beat the team you think would win it. If that sentence makes sense.
Well, I mean, have you seen a lot of Mosquitoes this year? Do you think?
Not
I know
really,
Benji
not
going
serious.
into Elite Invite said Mosquitoes. You have to prove it to me. And I know they took that kind of personally, and went out there and I think showed that they are in the elite class of the European division. Do you think they could come out and be a champion this year?
Absolutely. They didn't fluke their way to 5th last year, and I feel like they've built on it pretty effectively. In the same way that I think a certain run of events goes the right way and Disconnection could come out the champions. Maybe that's the Reading or Tartu. No, that's me. I'm just messing with Disconnection right now because that's something I love to do on and off the pitch. But yes, I absolutely think Mosquitoes could win. I think if Pavan decides to go Super Saiyan, he's not the only star in that Padova side. They could make the final and beat either Mosquitoes or TFC in the semi-final. The difference being, and what I say when I'm like, the team you think could win could lose to a lot more teams in this division than any other division, is because that's one game. But the consistency required to go game after game. So like if someone like Puck or Savage is able to take out one of the top 4 in a quarterfinal or semi-final even, I don't think they're going to be able to repeat it against another team of that caliber.
Yeah, I think already pool play is going to be very interesting. You definitely want to win your pool because you can avoid the pre-quarter and go get one game less. And I think that could matter here, especially like you're saying, injuries being such a factor in the mixed division. You can get one less game of injury risk. That's huge. And I think that most of these 2 seeds and some of these 3 seeds could challenge those top seeds and make things interesting already in pool play. I don't think things are going to be straightforward. I don't see all these pools going to seed by the end of it, and it's going to be very exciting, the next division. Let's take a quick look at Division 2 here for mixed. Again, we'll just look through all the teams here. We have 4 hands. Again, that might be Zoo mixed. We'll see what happens there. Colorado, the partners there in that Zoo mixed game. They also might move their ranking, but I don't think it'll change where they end up. We have Remix from the Netherlands, Helsinki Ultimate out from Hungary. Actually, that bracket play one. Do you know which logo that is? Because I actually
that
don't
is
know.
BN1 from Bristol or Brighton.
BN1 from Bristol. Thank you.
No, Brighton, not from Bristol.
Jesus.
Don't get those 2 cities mixed up. It's a thing. Brighton. Southwest English cities that throw fantastic pride festivals, but yeah, Brighton is different to Bristol.
Sky this Warsaw and Thundering Herd. And again, these are the teams invited out. I know it's the first division of Div 2. I'm not sure we're going to get all of them in. Invites could start going down further down the list. And like I said last time, if you get invited to either EUCF Div 1 or EUCF Div 2, please accept or reject your invitation by this Friday so we can get more invitations out if we need to try and fill up these tournaments. Anything else you want to say on the mixed division before we move on to the last one?
I kind of want to let the controversy just sit there a little bit. I had a couple of people I was tempted to call out, but yeah, look, again, in this mixed division, you've got a blend of like some of the younger clubs and then some really established ones who've been going for a very long time. So it's cool to see them there, and do please come along because it's always fantastic to see. I'm a big fan of like long-standing clubs, even something like Thundering Herd, occasionally show up at a higher level, but for the most part, just have been going around for a long time. It's the same with Brighton. I mean, BN1 is kind of a remix, and they've changed their logo and everything. Remix are there as well, but it is nice to see these kind of legacies continued. Same with like Colorado as well. So I'm really enjoying the makeup of this mixed division, or the second divisions that we've seen so far, and what they do kind of for the ultimate, as I perceive it, because I just like the idea of long-standing clubs.
All right, let's move on to our last division, the Open Division, here at the EUCF. And we will start with the Elite Invite winners, the out-and-out top seed of the season. One loss to Is No Good at French Nationals, which definitely may or may not have helped Isno. We'll find out later if that happens. But I know Chalk, when they play French Nationals, I think the Freesgo guys like Simon Ruel, maybe even Stengenek, I think, doesn't play with them. A lot of the people who aren't really from Pornichet, they don't play at French. They play with their home clubs at French Nationals. So Isno getting to play them in a sort of weakened state. Of course, those two teams know each other. I know Chalk won French final in the end, but in that pool play phase, Isno taking them down. So that's their one loss on the record. Otherwise, they've been just battering teams and have looked like the best team all season. We'll see if that continues out at EUCF. They're going to be down Sullivan Roble, though, as we saw him tear his ACL at the World Games. But the other World Games athletes looked incredible out there. Paul Benvenien, I think, getting a lot of new fans. So we'll look to see what he does in Wrocław. Let's go on to number 2, the Mooncatchers from Brussels. Great outing there at US Open they had, and 9-2 record. So the Brussels boys are going to be back. Gail Ancelot from the World Games joining them as well. So they're not. They're going to have a bit of that talent on their side. Wall City from Berlin getting the 3 spot, 7-3 record, even though they did lose their summer tour to the number 4 spot. Hrut from Amsterdam pushing themselves up a notch this year, doing it in summer tour without their revolver pickups that are going to make them even stronger at UCF. That rounds out the Open Division with Chalk, Mooncatchers, Wall City, and Hrut. Surprises here, Lorcan? Some team missing, 1 or 2 teams missing, you might have thought in the top 4 that are usually there.
It's a little peculiar, so I'm very curious to see how that goes. We'll talk about them when we get to them. With Hrut, obviously you talk about the pickups and everything. That is kind of scary. It was cool to see them. We obviously saw the massive success the women's side had once they split the clubs, and Hrut, not so much last year, but stuck with it, kept fighting their way up, winning summer tour without those pickups. I think goes a long way to legitimizing themselves as an open club. I'm curious to see how Wall City and Shack do, because obviously they look quite strong this season, but last season, for as good as they were and as entertaining as they were, phenomenal quarterfinal between the two of them, they both looked a step behind the top. Like Shack, to me, looked like they left everything they had out on the pitch in that semi-final against Mooncatchers, and they were never really in the game. That seems like it's a big year for some of those young players who really have learned a lot in the last year. And as we saw at the World Games and as we've seen throughout this season, they're the number 1 seeds. They deserve to be there. Can they hold on to it? Like you say, like Ravi said, the ratings don't matter. Throw them all out. Never pay attention to them. So we'll see. Something I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. And then obviously the Mooncatchers. First game I watched of the US Open, because how the timing worked out for me on the weekend was their 3rd place playoff, and I was like, oh God, this is terrible. But no, you go back and watch the other games. You're very, very impressed.
Oh, the one they played against, like 15-6 against Dig or something
Dig
like that.
Or something. I think it was Dig. Yeah.
That game against Truck Stop is phenomenal. An all-timer. That's an incredible game. So definitely check that one out. So we'll see what they bring. So let's go to seeding group 2, where I think we'll find a few teams that were used to being in seeding group 1. Oh, what? Number 5? Still not there. Heidi's not making it in. Sorry, they're not the ones we're talking about here. Heidi's didn't make it to UCF last year, just got knocked out in the last one. They really stopped this year. No, we're going to come foot on the gas, 9-2 record. We're coming here for real. We're not taking any chances. 509 rating. very strong performance from Heidelberg so far this year. La Fota from Bologna, 8-3 record. This is one of them that used to be, I think, in the top 3 conversation. Going to be a 2 seed in a pool. Going to be a very scary 2 seed in a pool. And here, the last one, Clapham, 7-4. The Bullfrogs, not in that top echelon, but for a while there, they were actually like ranked like 9th or 10th. And I was thinking there might be a 3 seed in the pool, but Summer Tour kind of solidified things a bit more. And Clapham is going to come in as ranked 7. And then Costa Rica Grandes, even though they did not win their wild card to the chagrin of some lower level teams, that we're going to get to that in a second. That could have been the difference maker for some teams out there. But yeah, Costa Rica there in top 8, rounding out the 2 seed section. Heidi's La Fota, Clapham, and Rimini, Costa Rica.
Yeah, all right. So let's get into this. Let's start at the start where I think a lot of people are. I don't care what ranking Clapham come in at, and I don't think they do either. And I think that's probably a part of the reason why they haven't done quite so well this season. Perhaps Clapham are falling off for the first time in their club's 20-year history, but I doubt it.
You don't see it?
I don't see it. We've declared their death far too many times. And again, like I was saying, a lot of different winners over the last few years, right? Like, I think so. The last 5 years goes like Fada, Clapham, Ranelagh, Clapham, Mooncatchers, or something like that. But you go back through the last 20 years, it's an awful lot of Clapham. Very curious to see how Heidi's do get on. Obviously, they made that semi-final in 2022, I think, after a big win over Wall City. And it just seemed like they maybe got there a little bit too soon, and they got there kind of on the backs of a couple of players, but they've talent throughout the squad now. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of Sontag. I just feel like the guy with the farmer's gloves can throw it anywhere he wants. So I like the club, and it's nice to see them get back, especially after missing last year, and see what they've developed and built upon, how they got against this elite competition. BFD La Fada are, they're BFD La Fada. They've got plenty of talent. They are constantly recycling. They've got, well, not constantly recycling, but you see they're always bringing players up. They've got a huge youth program. Their seeding as opposed to Clapham, I think, is a little bit more revelatory. So I'd like your opinion on that.
And so in terms of why they're seated where they're seated? Or...
I think BFD's seeding is a little fairer than Clapham's, or I'd be less intimidated.
So Clapham has had some mixed results. Actually, the reason why Clapham are low ranked is because at Elite Invite and at Tom's Tourney, at least I heard, they were just running 3 even lines. They were not running O&D lines. They wanted to just use their tournaments to develop. And I don't think they're going to do that come Euros at EUCF. So I think it is.
But did you hear the same thing about La Fada, or do you think La Fada? Because I think La Fada were going.
Yeah, that's the questionable. Yeah, okay, so that's what you mean. Yeah, exactly. So La Fada, I'm curious. We'll dig into the rankings after we do the full reveal, just quickly. But yeah, I'm a bit curious. Why they got where they were. But I think if you looked at Elite Invite results, I don't know where they ended up there, but I think just the teams above them playing well. I think Chalk for sure was the top team this season. There was no question there. I think Wall City was in the Elite Invite final. Mooncatchers had a great set of results. Maybe Mooncatchers were in the final. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, anyways, I just think that the other teams have played above them, and we can look into some ranking deep dives later. But this is the way it played out, and we'll see how it goes. Either way, I mean, whether Hut was the top seed or Lafota the second seed, and Lafota is the top seed and Chris is the second seed, I mean, you're going to get some crazy matchups here. Now, I have a question for you. Would you, if you're one of these top 4 seeds, I think Lafota and Clapham are the scary 2 seeds, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the question is, would you rather get them in your pool so you get them early, or have them in somebody else's pool, which means you're likely to get either a 1 seed or them in your quarterfinal if you can win your pool out?
I think if I'm any of those top 4, I'd rather play them in the pool. I think feel them out, hide a couple of things from them, see how they're getting on. Obviously, they're coming for the title. The only difference would be if I was Shaq. I suppose I'm a Moon as well. I don't really care so much. If you're getting to the point where you're trying to game the system and these decisions matter to you, I think I'd rather play them in the pool.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you
low
want
stakes.
them in the pool.
Yeah, test them out on that level. Yes, okay, maybe you lose to them and now you have to play, but you're one of the top seeds already. And like if you're in that top 4, they can all beat the other ones. I'd be more scared of playing Clapham in a quarter. Basically, you're asking, am I more scared of Clapham in a quarterfinal, or am I more scared of one of the other 3 top teams? Yeah. And that depends. I'm probably in order scared of Mooncatchers, Clapham, Shaq, in that order. And I know based on that season that sounds unfair. And Shaq have been brilliant, a lot of individual excellence now as a club in the build up to this last year, really impressive. But again, kind of to borrow a line from Benji, you gotta show it to me. And you did look just a little step behind at the highest level last year. Very willing to eat those words.
All right, going in for seeding group 3. Why don't you get us going here, Lorcan?
Yes, sir. We got Bad Skid, Mass Impact Boys, coming in at rank 9 with 8 and 4. Sorry, you might be able to hear my chair squeeching ever so slightly. Look, established club. We'll see how they do.
Sorry.
Speaking of established clubs, no, it's fine. We can just move on. I'm talking too long anyway. Getting caught up in this. Chevron Action Flash, elite style. Alan Partridge reference. In case anybody, I finally worked that out after years of trying to work out what it was. Fantastic. They're apparently from Birmingham, which is of course that small town in the Midlands of England where they invented hat brims. Up to that point, it was all beanies, and then they invented the hat brim. So obviously named after them. Now, Chevron Action Flash, the perennial second club of the UK, a lot of talent. They kind of attracted from all over the country to a certain extent. Up and down this season, up and down for the last few seasons. We'll see how they get on.
Yeah, I think they were from Water Orton last year. I think they change around which city they're from every year. I don't know.
They have pods over the UK, as I understand. I'm not sure if that's still how they do it, but yeah, they're kind of like Smog. They just pick a general city from their region, not London. You could put down Chevron Action Flash, not London.
Not London, England. All right.
3SB. I'm sure a couple of people delight to see them come in here from Budweis. That's just me attempting to copy Raquel. I didn't read the word. We'll see how they get on. They're very middle of the pack. Traditionally, I would personally consider them that way. And then I've listened to John Dodd perhaps a little bit too much in messages and stuff. And that guy, a lot of opinions. So honestly, I don't really know what to make of 3SB. Do I trust what I've heard? Do I trust what I've seen? They'll probably finish like 8th, or maybe probably not 8th, probably 9th to 14th or something.
So normally it's the 16 seed that is the drum roll for the last one in. But I think people that follow probably know the wild cards that are coming in as the 4 seeds for this tournament.
Which is
so actually, this number 12 is the big kind of last ranked team in. We will show the rankings of the last teams. So yeah, let's see who managed to get over the line. Again, 2 years in a row, last ranking bid in is no.
They can't keep getting away with this. But they do. I don't know. It's no good. You don't need to be good. The noise is like, do we even need to talk about them? Ludicrous.
Yeah, so since we're here, I'll just go through the last one since I think they're not that big of a surprise, and we'll look at the full slate of fields. We got they did manage to get top 13. So people complaining that they weren't a good team in, they would have qualified. I mean, they actually wouldn't have qualified because the catch up getting there, whatever, they wouldn't have made it in. But yeah, they were ranked top 13. And they got the wild card. So Örebro from Sweden winning their wild card on Universe against Ketchup. Ketchup starting on offense. I remember seeing the couple pixels that the VO stream was able to show me of that last point. Did look very exciting. Then we've got Free Speed, ranked number 17. Had a phenomenal weekend on their side with a couple big close wins, beating Costa Rica on Universe in the final of Summer Tour Rimini. The Basel boys getting them in. We've got Jet Set from Leuven winning the summer tour from Hornsilt. Yeah, they're in 10-2 record. Notably, a couple players from their team, Emile Deric, Louis Courtois, transferring to Gentle at the end of the transfer deadline. But as you'll notice, last team in, ranked number 31, Bristol, winning their 4-team tournament, getting out. And
definitely my favorite qualification path as well.
Yeah, but beating Ranelagh, who was a top 16 team, to get there. So they did.
Universe.
You beat it on Universe. We had 3 Universe point wildcard play-in games. So that is our final slate of teams. Yes, at least from Free Speed, Jet Set, and Bristol, they were not ranked the top 16. Free Speed ranked 17, so really not that far away. Jet Set and Bristol there. Yeah, so look. All right, I'm gonna defend the system a little bit right here. Okay. Aside from Jet Set, look, and I'll get to Jet Set in a second. Aside from Jet Set, the other teams all beat a top 16 team in the game to go, which is the excitement that the EUCRs are meant to have, and people that really want that system to come back. We got that. We had 3 Universe point games where a team that had to beat a team that was in the top 16 to get their spot. That means that going into the tournament, though they had not the best season, they were fighting for, okay, we have one last chance, which is winning this tournament. We got to beat a good team. We got in. All right, Jet Set. Jet Set, okay, they had a weak summer tour, and that's sometimes the luck of the draw. And Bristol, you could say, had a 4-team tour, but they did beat Ranelagh to get in. Jet Set beat a bunch of teams, including my team that was there. No team was in the top 20, and that does feel a little unfair. And we're going to be thinking about that in the competition committee weekend this weekend to see if we're going to continue that on. How can we make the summer tours more fair? What can we do about them? Should we get rid of the wild card? Is it developed that we should just do ranking bids? It's another option. We're going to think about it. But we said that we wanted to have some excitement. And if that means 1 or 2 teams at the bottom of the rankings, it was just teams 14, 15, and 16 that didn't get in. And instead we got 17. I think Logan was 19 and 31 that didn't get in. So it's just bottom seeds that get out. And we had a lot of crazy excitement and some very action-packed games to finish things out. In my opinion, that's a trade-off that I think isn't so crazy. Now, the Jet Set one's a bit different, but they did have XVI in their summer tour, which last year was 1 point away from making it into Elite Invite. They lost to Hrut on Universe in the pre-quarter. And so when we were making the summer tours, which we do at the beginning of the year, it looked like there was going to be an EUCF level team in that summer tour. It happened that XVI was not as strong this year as they were last year, but that's part of the challenge of trying to plan these things ahead of time at the beginning of the season. Yeah. So that's my whole defense out of the way. Lorcan, feel free to tear me apart why the system is terrible. People in the chat, feel free to tear this apart why the system is terrible. I think this had a very exciting end of season, and there's some good things to this wildcard system as well. Go ahead, Lorcan.
Look, as with life, I'm here for the comedy, and I love the fact that Jet Set got in and Gentle didn't, because I'm not super close to anybody on either of those teams. I do actually really like the Gentle boys, just in general from back in the day, but I think they're kind of a new generation anyway, so nuts to them. That's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. Bristol are from noted Czech team Bristol, as somebody said in the comments, just on the flags. I did want to ask, how big of a role, because Liam asked this and I wanted to make sure it was put to you, how big of a role did the ISNO game against Shaq play in them qualifying?
Yeah, we can get to that. I'll try to dig in the rankings. I'm going to run the rankings now and publish them. So, because I didn't have that up before, now that everything's been revealed, I will hit enter on my computer. Hopefully that will run. Don't usually do this live, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Fair. Well, something I was curious about when I was looking at the open division, but really it speaks to all the divisions. I'd say the open is a good place to bring it up. It's a little bit more steady than like mixed. But the generation impact, and I was obviously talking about how I like the long-standing clubs, but just catching teams at different stages or their ability to pass on their club to another generation. I mean, there's certain clubs that are immune to that just by their setup, like Clapham, obviously based in the capital, we attract the best players. That's going to be fine. You look at other teams on the younger side of it, like Free Speed, fantastic to see them back in there. We haven't really seen them be good at a European level, like quality back in the day since like 2010, 2011, when they were very, very impressive. And I believe, as you were saying, it's a much younger team. So it's like a whole revitalized thing. Took a few years out in the wilderness. They've emerged back, bearded, with axes, strong forearms, ready to go. I think that's fantastic. Similar enough thing you see in kind of Bristol with the southwest of England. Like Devon made the UCF several times, and that club kind of folded into itself a little bit. But now Bristol has stepped up, and they really focused on trying to establish their own club there, and they've done that fantastically. So that's another example of generations coming to the fore. The inverse of that, I think you see a little bit with Bad Skid, where some of their best players are still really back in that like under 24 Germany team from the 2010s, and had they been able to revitalize themselves in the same way, we've just kind of watched them steadily slip down the rankings, not capitulate by any measure, because there's still plenty of talent on that side, but they do seem to be aging out of competition. I mean, there was a period there where they're second best team in Europe for arguably 2-3 years. It was between them and BFD La Fada, but Bad Skid could never get that final hump against Clapham. Chevron, obviously, so much of their success, they finally won a UK title after 15 years of coming second, thanks to their young players. Heidi's, again, maybe got there a little bit too early. BFD La Fada, with their youth program, are constantly regenerating like that. Not really sure, like Mooncatchers, this is obviously the second generation of Mooncatchers, but then so much of their talent has come, not so much, but a measure of their talent has come from people from other areas coming and playing with them. So is that as sustainable, or do we see them kind of disappear off the rankings a few years from now when the people go back home and it comes time to get another generation in? So just watching the rise and fall of teams is very interesting to me in the different ways that they would go about it. And I do think this is a particular reason why the praise Costa Rica Grandes, we didn't talk about too much, but they have been just growing and growing. And it's very, very impressive. And something I'm always, and this is why I like the long-standing clubs, right? The hardest thing to do in Ultimate, I think, isn't to win an EUCF title. The hardest thing to do in Ultimate is to hand on the club to a second generation. We've seen so many clubs that are established by people who are friends and they play, and when they kind of age out of it, the club dies. and new clubs emerge or new names emerge. That ability to hand off to the next generation and keep going, I think, is huge. But I do find the different timings of that process seem to be playing out here to a certain extent when we look at like the younger sides who are really rising up, such as Hrut, such as Shaq, and then the teams who are coming back into it as the young players take over, such as Free Speed and Chevy. I don't want to focus on the negative ones I meant.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, I do have to say it's tough for Gentle, but I know Gentle, they are the last team out. And I said in the show on Saturday, what they needed was for Quixotes to play down, not play well on the Sunday, and then to have Costa Rica beat Free Speed. And if that had happened, Gentle would have been in. Quixotes did drop below Gentle in the ranking. But yeah, they came out to Summer Tour without a strong team, missing a lot of their top players. Their only good win, they had one win against Lafota. The rest of their resume is not very good. They lost every game at Elite Invite, and they had some close games, but their best games were losses. And then they had a universe point win against like Echo from Austria, and their resume wasn't better than the teams that qualified above them ranking wise. They didn't rank above Orebro. Even the Orebro, you can say, yeah, they had a weak schedule, but they have shutting out team after team 13-6 is also difficult to do. 15-6, like that's Orebro did it. That was the teams in front of them. They did what was in front of them on their schedule. And yeah, so it's tough, but there's 16 teams in. I think no matter what system you have, it's going to feel tough. The teams out are going to feel tough. And again, I will agree with Nikki's comment there that Jet Set's qualification is the one that feels the worst to me personally, because yes, they did not have to beat a team in the top 20 to get there, and they got an easy Summer Tour. The rest of the teams all won a game against a top 16 team in a game that matters, and we want to have a combination of season rankings for most of the bids. The top 12 bids were all based on that, and then have a little bit of spice. That was the purpose of the system we set up. We're going to be relooking at that. Maybe we want to make it totally fair, get rid of all the spice. I'm curious. Lorcan, go full out. You don't have to like what UF's doing. If you were in charge, what kind of system would you like for qualifying teams to the UCF? Given that you've seen regionals, you've seen ranking without wild cards, you've seen ranking with wild cards. What do you like? I know you hate math, but
I hate maths. I'm not a huge fan of responsibility. Look, if I wanted to be in charge of this, I'd be in charge of this, right? And that's not like an arrogant thing. I would have stepped up a couple of years ago. I would have like gotten involved. I am not in a position to answer these questions. I'll have opinions on them if you want, sure.
Yeah, great.
I'm not in a position to answer these questions. I think you got to suck it up. I mean, look, you have no control over how many people show up to a tournament. You're trying to do something here. You operate with the tools that are available to you. So a 14 tournament isn't great. 16 tournament, especially earlier in the season, isn't great. I think maybe you push the wild card winning tournaments a little bit further back in the season. Maybe they're a little bit more representative. So you only offer them for elite invites, or you only offer them for like the summer tours. But then you have to then does nobody bother showing up to the spring tours? And I love the spring tours, especially because that's where a lot of teams will get their initial games. That might be a possible solution. But at the end of the day, people are going to be unhappy. And look, if you limp to the ring, you get knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been some phenomenal performances by Gentle this season, but there's just not enough of them. And there's a lot of quality teams. So you can tweak around the edges, you can kind of mix it, but then the inverse of this is like people complain back when it was the EUCR and it fell on a weekend that half their team couldn't make because somebody was getting married. And it's like, we're the third best team in Europe, half our team. This is a hypothetical I'm saying, but like that would happen. The weekend wouldn't work for them on EUCR, and all of a sudden they don't qualify, and then they're complaining about that. Like
this format allows more flexibility. You can have a resume over a season, and
it allows more flexibility. It allows more gaming, and that's the downside. It's one way or the other, right? If you allow people more flexibility, then people are going to use that flexibility to try and, stretch around where possible. That's the trade-off, and I think it's a trade-off I'm fine with. If we want to argue about who's going to come between 13th and 16th at EUCF, I mean, even as I say that, that does seem pretty harsh. Making ECF is a huge deal. I think this system is good. I think you continue to refine it, and it works quite well. There was a couple of game to goes that kind of worked out. I'm always a huge fan of the game to goes. I like the idea of the regional stuff. Maybe a bit more structure with the wildcard tournaments is the only thing I could think of. But sure, if I had any more good ideas about this, I'd have already told them to you.
Yeah, one idea I floated, which I'll save that for later. Well, since we're gonna talk about the competition committee this weekend, I'll wait to see how they respond, and I'll get to it later. All right, before we go and dig into the rankings a little bit, and I will answer any ranking questions. So we will take a quick look at Division 2 in the Open Division here, and here are the teams that qualified. Gentle, Quixotes, Ranela, One Tribe, Ketchup, Rat Track Burn, which we still have the Panthers logo. Sorry about that, Rat Track. Flying Angels Burn, 2 Burn teams, and Soul Bank. So 3 Swiss teams rounding it out there for the E2CF in the Open Division.
I think it's awesome. Burn sending in. That's the only other city, right? Like London had 2, and then was there any other cities that had 2? Oh, I suppose Paris. Well, that's 33 different divisions. But anyway, Burn showing up 2 different club teams.
Yeah.
So very nicely done. One Tribe are always a bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, look, Gentle are in there, Rattler in there. That'll probably be very exciting. Both top 4 finishes back in 2022. We know all their talent. I think, as I understand it, just to answer one of the questions there, none of the close summer tour games hit 15. The lower scoring games are ranked. The ranking isn't as effective or something. It's like
yeah, but I think 12, 11, 13, 12, I think still are fully weighted. It has to be a lower scoring game than that for it to start not counting, I believe. Maybe I can't remember. I have it listed in the algorithm there. There's an algorithm explanation. I can show it in a sec because I'm going to get to the ranking page now. I'm going to share now another window here. And here is what it looks like on the ranking page fully out. And we'll start with the Open Division here because I know there's some questions specifically here. So here we see wild cards, Free Speed, Kafum, Jet Sets, and way down here, Bristol. The question was with Is No Good, how much did that matter? Now, Is No Good, we're comparing Is No Good and Gentle. So Is No Good has a ranking of 333 and Gentle has a ranking of 281. So that's a difference of about 50 points. If I look at their average is 333, I'm not gonna be able to do all this math off the top of my head, but the game rating they have for beating Czech is an 845 game. So you'd have to do the math to see if it is only weighted 0.75 a game, makes it even harder to calculate because it is a single game, as that's how they ranked that one. I don't know if that's going to reduce them by 50 points. Somebody else, you can do the math just by averaging these games here. You can go down to their ranking and see that and see if it's lower than 333. If it's lower than 281, then it would have made the difference there. But I'm not going to do that math on air at the moment. Feel free to do that later. Thank God. You had a question, I think, about BFD La Fota and what was holding them back. We can take a look here and we can see what are there. Yeah, I think it's easier to look at the plot sometimes.
Well, the point I was making about BFD La Fota is I thought their ranking was truer. I can't think of the right way to say it. It was truer than the Clapham ranking that we kind of went through a little bit.
Oh, okay. So you think it represented their season better than Clapham's did?
Yes.
So were you surprised by Clapham's ranking then, or
no? I think I wasn't surprised because I wasn't like, oh, Clapham are going to come 7th. I'm not surprised by Clapham not taking it seriously until they have to.
Yeah. I think that's what they did, and that's how it played out, and we'll see how it goes for them there.
They had like half their team. This was last year, I think. They had like half their team at a wedding, and they sent the other team, and their policy was we want to practice zone. So at the start of every single D point, they purposefully pulled the disc to the halfway out in the sideline. And that's in a live game. These boys are training with live ammo.
Yeah.
Like that's their whole season up until the UCF is just training.
Yeah. And okay, so I will hear now if people have questions. They had that one question about that. I'm not going to do full math here, but I'll take a quick look at how close teams were to being in or out. So like Is No Good and Gentle, you see they have a 50-point difference. If you look at the matchup between them, we do see that they did not play each other. Do they have any mutual opponents? It was Clapham, and you see Gentle did play Clapham much closer than Is No Good did. But yeah, looking at the plots between the two teams, indeed, it looks like the spreads of the teams, Is No Good had some lower lows than Gentle did, but of course, this higher high of the win against Chuck, Gentle's best game is better than Is No's other best game. So yeah, I can't really do this by eye, but it looks like looks like if that chalk game wasn't in there, that it maybe it would have flipped the script. But again, Gentle has a lot. If I'm Gentle, I'm not looking at what other teams did. Look at what you did, right? Look at Gentle's resume, and you see here all the games they have ranked by game rating. They've got only 3 wins on the season. 1 wins against Frisbee Club Barcelona, 1 wins against Echo on Universe, and the 1 good win is against La Fota. Other than that, yes, they have some close losses to some top teams, but yeah, they have a loss to Heidi's 15-10. They had chances. They should go out there and beat Heidi's. Just saying.
I mean, maybe not. Heidi's got some great receivers and one of the best throwers in the continent.
Yeah.
Like, do you rank some of those losses above? You have to rank some of those losses above some of the wins Örebro got.
Yeah, so I have this ranking is by their best game ratings.
I understand the maths is all worked out.
I don't rank anything, but yes, like the Mooncatchers loss was their second best game. The Hrt loss was their third best game, and Frisbee Club Barcelona is 15-8. Yeah, that's their next one. But yeah, this Echo win is actually pulling them down in the rankings.
Jesus.
So yeah, you shouldn't beat a team like Echo on Universe. That's what it is. All right. I will open it up for any questions. I have the rankings here. I can also show what it looks like. Oh, we'll look at the... Yeah, I'm not going to worry that much about the second division. People can do that look themselves. We'll look at how close it was for the other divisions too. On the edge here, we had leftovers versus forehands, 56-42. That's a 6-point difference. Really, really razor thin margins. And again, as we said, this forehand Zoom mixed results might be flipping. And we'll see if that happens based on what the appeal board says. In the women's division, the borderline here is Heidi's Synergy versus Örebro. We have a -98 to a -106. So that's also an 8-point difference. Very, very close. I want to see the matchup between that. They play each other this season. Heidi's Synergy and Kafum. See, they're very similar plots looking out there. Kafum a bit more variance. Heidi's a bit more tied together. Did they play each other? No. Did they have any mutual opponents? Both losing to Gentle, 9-10 and 10-13, both beating Horizon 15-3 and 15-9. So you see 14-3 and 15-9. So you see they're a bit of a better win and a better loss for Heidi. So some of these mutual opponent games probably swung the difference for them there. Question here from Liam: why is Elite Invite
I wanted to put some of these to you
lower than Summer Invite? The reason. So we decided to make Summer Tours worth more because we thought, and this is feedback we got from teams throughout the season, that how a team performs later in the season is more representative of how good they're going to be at a UCF. So a tournament in May is not as representative as a tournament in August. It also gave teams some incentive to go to Summer Tours, whereas they didn't really need incentive to go to Elite Invite. But that's why we had all the Summer Tours worth a bit more. The way the USAU algorithm works, which is where we base this thing off of, they have a sort of sliding scale where the later in the season a game is, the more highly it's weighted. We decided to just have an arbitrary cutoff. Summer Tours weighted more, everything else weighted the same, make it a bit simpler. But that's why Summer Tour games are weighed higher than Elite Invite games.
What if we flip that? Spring Tours are now weighted higher, only get wild card for Summer Tours. So weight the ones without wild cards more.
That's an idea. That's an idea.
Throwing it out there. I did also think it was a pretty nice idea from Alessandro. If you see that one, maybe if like a certain threshold of teams wind up dropping out, you say, all right, we can't offer a wild card for this tournament anymore. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so we did think about that. We thought about that this year already. Again, these Summer Tours that had 4 teams originally had 8, and then 2 dropped out right away. We were trying to fill those 2 spots in, and 2 dropped out, I think, like a week before or 2 weeks before the tournament. And that was hard for us to deal with. It's always hard to deal with. We're probably going to have fewer Summer Tours next year in general to make sure we don't have to worry about this as much. What we thought would be challenging there is that every team that paid for and signed up for a Summer Tour paid for, had an expectation that they had a wildcard opportunity. So we thought it would be unfair to take that away from a team who already paid money and probably paid tickets and airfare with the idea that they had a wild card opportunity if that's how their team had planned their season, and then rip the wild card away from them at the last minute. That didn't seem fair. And I get it. It's not as easy to get a wild card from Heilbronn with 10 really good teams as it is to get one in Sterling. With his 4 teams, you just have to win out. Still had to play 5 games. Still had to win your last game. In that sense, it's kind of similar, but yeah, it feels different. I get that. We're looking into it, but that's the explanation for why we did it this year.
And could you adjust the weighting? Maybe, all right, the wild card's gone, but these matches are worth more. I suppose you still run into, like, someone's always going to be unhappy.
Yeah, so I think changing something midstream is difficult because teams plan their season based on a certain situation, and that's we don't want to change things midstream. So we're going to think about it for next year to make. We're going to take learnings from this year and make tweaks for next year, but we're not going to change something midseason. That's just not fair in how we weigh it. Yeah. Gabriela Calderota, even if you beat everyone at your summer invite, but you don't get the same point as having close losses against everyone at elite invite. That can be true. Yeah, of course that can be true. It depends. That's why getting into elite invite is a privilege you get by getting top 8 at EUCF, and you have the chance to get a lot more points. Liam's asking where the Belgians live in the chat. This is what I came here for. So we'll see if we have any gentle players out there in the chat. I'm just looking around here to see if there's any more questions because I do want to answer any here. Yeah. And also, Nemo, if you find any questions in the Solid Sport chat, because I can only see the YouTube chat with what I'm looking for here. So maybe that's where the Belgians are. I don't know. Belgians are in the Solid Sport chat. Are there any questions in that Solid Sport chat that we should bring up?
Oh, I can't see the Solid Sport chat either. That's devastating. Have they just been losing their minds at us the entire time? I hope so.
They said apparently they're only mentioning that Jet Set is goated in the Solid Sport chat. So don't think weighting tournaments differently helps. The main focus should be getting more data points for the algorithm or bust. We did run the algorithm without the weighting changes this year. It actually didn't change. The only thing I believe it changed substantially, some teams, it didn't change who qualified or didn't qualify. Some teams got their seedings moved around. Like I know East Block, the only, I think, substantive change is that East Block went from an 8 seed to a 9 seed. So they would have been in that seed 2 ranking to the seed 3 ranking. And that makes a lot of sense because East Block had a much stronger team and a much better performance at Summer Tour than they did for Vienna Spring Break. So if those two are weighted equally, you would imagine they would do slightly worse. So yeah. Liam saying he thinks Bristol win a game at a UCF. Yeah, so maybe it's not so bad that they qualified. That's really what
Bristol
you think.
Could make quarterfinals if things go their way. We're talking about the women's division, right? No, that might be a little bit too mean. They will against Jets.
So Arthur is saying Bristol with their rating surely feels worse than Jet Set. People can feel however they want. I don't think so. Bristol beat Ranelagh, who is, if you look here in the open division, for me, there are 2 ways to qualify. There are only 2 ways to qualify. Do well in the rankings or beat a team that's trying really hard to get your seed. Those are 2 legit ways to qualify. And the whole point is that if a team's down in the bottom of the rankings, they still have a shot. They still get to go there and beat a team. And they went and beat Ranelagh, who was ranked 16th. So if it was pure rankings, they beat the team and basically took a spot from Ranelagh. So that's why, to me, Bristol getting in does not feel as bad as Jet Set getting in because Jet Set didn't have to beat anybody in the top 16 to get there. That's my opinion. Other people can feel how they feel.
Bristol also, I don't know, I gloss over this either. Bristol also had to be quite a tough Alba team and beat them on Universe Point in the semifinal. Like, it was a very, very tight 4-team tournament. So if you look Ranelagh, Bristol, Alba, any of those 3 teams would have a decent shot against Isno, against Jet Set, maybe a little bit further up.
All right. Yeah, they had to win 2 games at a 4-team tournament. That's also fair because day 1 they did lose to Smash D, and but day 1 didn't matter. They only had to win their last 2 games to get in. So
kind of undoes my point a little bit. Like, Smash D, you don't make it to Euros. All right, fine, Liam. Don't you have fires to be putting out?
But hey, we got some spice. Again, we'll be looking at it to think about it next year. Kafum is the same. Kais is saying there that Kafum had a very easy road. Yeah, but they didn't choose their opponents in front of them. They took the road in front of them and they won. They had a 12-0 record. Yes, only the game against Ketchup that argued is the only team in the top 20 they played all season. That's fair. But they crushed teams. They crushed KFK 15-4, who's not a terrible team. They went out there and won by the big margins they had to, which is not an easy thing to do, to continuously do that against every bad team. Yes, we'll see how will they do when they play against top 16 teams. But I think, yeah, I agree with John Dock. From what I've seen with them, they look good, and I don't think they're going to be a pushover in that bottom seed at EUCF. Don Demaray is asking, when will the pools be announced? Probably either next week or the week after. We still haven't planned the show. I got to get a few guests lined up. Last year we had a nice set of 3 guests, 1 per division, to really look at the pools. So I have to get all that sorted and lined up, but it'll either be next Tuesday or the week after Tuesday, and we will announce the pools. I will announce one more time: if you get an invite to EUCF or EUCF Div 2, please give your you'll get an email today. Please go out there and respond to that by Friday, so that we can give out invites to other teams. And especially for these Div 2 tournaments, we're not sure what the appetite's going to be, so we want to make sure we can fill those up. Please get out there and respond as quickly as you can. Deadline is Friday. All right. Yeah, I think if there's any other questions about any other division. Should we let Liam onto the restream? Liam, do you want to pop in and have a few words?
Hold on, we can't be in the same place at the same time. I'll just drop out real quick. I think it seems bizarre and unfair. They didn't plan for 4 teams to drop out. Someone always feels screwed no matter what the system is. I get it. They're still trying to refine it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see, will there be an open forum to discuss moving back, or is it just going to be you guys deciding?
It'll be the competition committee deciding, but we are taking input from people. So email competition@ultimatefederation.eu. Would regionals have gotten a stronger set of teams? I don't think so. I think regionals always results in you can't really do the strength of the regions. We don't have an ability to control, like the way USAU does it is that they have tournaments. You have to get your 10 games in before regionals. You have to play even one more tournament before regionals that you can decide bids based on the ranking. We don't want to do that. And the other way to do it is to base regionals off of the previous year. And that'll always end up, if some really good team is a lot better this year than last year, it doesn't really work out to be fair. Like, I think Hrut coming in as a central division team last year, as a first year open division team in the women's division, would have totally screwed over a good central division team. Whereas this year, everybody has an even playing field. So I do fully believe that we have a better set of teams here than we would have had with UCR, even with the wildcard bids. I think these wildcard teams definitely could have qualified through the regional divisions as well. That's it. Pietro Zoka saying the main source of unfairness has been the summer invites wildcards. Look, you can decide that if you want. Again, the Jet Set one I agree with. The others I don't really, but that's my opinion, one man's opinion, and definitely happy to hear other ones. I'm just going to ask Nemo, is there a chance you're going to get Liam on the show, or is this not happening? We're already an hour and a half in. If you're going to do it, do it soon, because we should close out the show for a final debate. Yeah, I said let him in, but you have to do it. You have to find a way to do it. I can't do it.
Wasn't chosen. Why was there a lot of competition for that position, Liam? We should get more data points on the competition committee.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. Getting more data points is ideal. Could you just explore a little bit what Pietro was talking about there and saying national organizations need to apply? Nemo, that was a little conversation they're having in the comments there in order to have tournaments that are more registered. I thought teams could just decide on their way. It's like, by the way, we're going to use this tournament as a ranking if anybody else wants to do that. Like, if you want more data points, you can go get them. You just can't go get a wild card.
That's and that's a thing that has been questioned a bit. Like, should national championships be forced to be ranked? Now, we could say yes, but there are instances where some teams, like we mentioned, Chalk doesn't play with their full. Oh,
Jesus Christ!
I'll finish my point, then I'll get Liam in. We got him in. We're gonna bring the spice to the stream. But there's instances, for example, like Colorado, I know plays nationals with Steph Dosher, who plays UCS with Bad Skid, but he coaches Colorado, so he likes playing nationals with Colorado. So basically, he would have to not play with them, and they would rather play nationals with him. And we decided that's up to individual teams. That's something we could make stricter later. That's something a national federation could say and come down and say, hey, we think that our nationals should have to be ranked, so they could put their rules on their teams. But we kind of leave that for national federations to handle their nationals. We don't want to impose things on the national championships. All right, Liam. Let's see what you have to say. What do you have to say here, Liam? Liam, big fan of the system. Explain why it's so unfair and why regionals is the best thing ever.
I don't think regionals is the best thing ever, but I think you could make some adaptations to make it better. And there's going to be, downfalls of any system. There's going to be pros and cons. But this system,
this is too balanced. I didn't come here for this. It's ridiculous.
This system is inherently unfair, And look, kudos to all the teams that qualified. But this wildcard system is always going to end up with this situation, in my opinion. It's going to be so hard to not have some wildcard tournament where there's loads of weak teams. It's so hard for EUF or whoever to make sure there's a fair spread of wildcard teams or strong teams in each of these summer invites. If you take out the wildcard, I think teams aren't going to go. If they halfway through the season, if they're kind of out of the game, I think Sterling, the tournament falls apart if there isn't that wild card on the table. You know what I mean? So
all the teams out of the system. You mean the teams out of the system are just going to drop out, that are out of the ranking, they can't qualify anymore because we disqualify. If a team that's in drops out, they get disqualified. So that's not allowed. But teams that aren't in,
but let's say you took the wild card from Sterling. You said, hey, there's only 4 teams. We're not allowing the wild card. I would say Bristol and Smash D are going to say we're not going to bother coming then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or at the other tournaments. So that's been your carrot to tempt people with. So if you take that away, you're going to end up in a similar situation. So I just don't think
it's not an easy problem.
I think regionals, you end up with a situation where you might, again, there could be situations where I have the best team. That's kind of regional diversity as opposed to.
So I'll give you my proposal, Liam, that I'm going to give to the competition committee later, because this actually works for there's a problem. Was that regionals really didn't work for women's and mixed because there's not as much teams, and there were regionals with 3 teams, and it was just really hard to get things going.
Make the region smaller.
This system works much better for open. This system, works much better for mixed and women's than the regional system does. I think there's no question about that. For open,
wait, what about Atletico? Did it work for them?
Atletico has come to EUCF once out of 3 years, anyways. They don't like the UCR system either. So that's a different thing. Anyways, what I wanted to say was for open, which is more developed, and then if the other divisions develop later, we could also do this for them. Make the summer tours regional, so that it's basically each wild card is 1 spot per region, and then the rest are determined by rankings. And that way, we are getting regional diversity with the wild cards. But then everything else is determined by rankings, and that could be a good hybrid of the 2 systems. And then for mixed and women's, we only have a couple summer tours because that's all we have interest for, and so they keep running the system as is. That's kind of my weird proposal. I don't know if it's possible, but and again, we'll talk about it with the competition committee. But it's a kind of half-baked idea I've had. But yeah,
I think it's better actually. Now that you say it, I still think there's lots of problems with in general. I think you said on the last show, or maybe 2 shows ago, that you basically have to go to a spring and summer invite. I think that Pelt was one of the teams that pulled out of Sterling. I think that was because we went to Wind Farm as a ranked tournament and got 0 ranked games, and then suddenly, and you just can't leave it up to chance. Going to tournaments for ranked games. And I think there's other problems with this, not just the best teams aren't getting in, which happened this year in the open division. And there's lots of situations the forehands thing doesn't seem right, how that all went down. To me, I think it's hurting the tournaments like Thomas Tourney Windmill, the best tournaments. It's definitely hurting the G spots and the Fly Me to the Moons and to all these other things.
Those tournaments
I
do
think
just fine, Liam. They're
Are
Connor
they?
Moon happened last week. They're
Are
fine.
they? Why did Windmill not have ranked games?
I can't get it. We can't get into that.
Okay, well,
He's
I
trying
wonder
to get
why
him to
that
fight
is.
himself on stream.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's tournaments that don't like that, and I can think of several ones that would feel that way. I think it's
Okay.
hurting them. So I said this in a more delicate before on the stream, but I'm surprised more teams aren't kicking up about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams like it still. I think a lot of teams like the system still. And a year,
Yeah, I guess
I think the majority of the teams. When I went to Spring Tour, like I play for a team that's 40th ranked, and we could go to Hamburg and Rumble. We could go to all these other tournaments, but going to Spring Tour and Summer Tour feel very different. We feel that we're getting to play against teams that are really trying and competing at a European level, and we did not get that opportunity before, except for EUCR. And like I've talked to other teams that have said that this system is amazing because it gives them that. I think there's a lot of good things you're forgetting about what's in the system. Going and playing a party tournament somewhere, you don't know. Half the teams aren't going to be real teams. I'm playing against all real club teams from places that I don't get to play in my national championship. And I think this gives more teams that opportunity to play against better club teams regularly throughout the season. It also gives us a story with the rankings to talk about something. We're not just doing the whole Euro season in one weekend for regionals, where just a bunch of tournaments don't mean anything. So I think there's a lot of stuff there that you're not giving credit for in the system.
Yeah, look, there is pros and cons both, and I get that. I think there is teams that enjoyed that competitive long season. I think there's other teams that didn't enjoy it, that it was very expensive and time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's pros and cons to both. I think it's worse. And I think I asked the question earlier, would you think you'd have stronger teams if there's regionals? And I think the answer would have been yes. I think certainly the teams that came 13, 14, 15, 16 are very likely to qualify in that situation. Certainly Gentle, who I think been in contention to win EUCF.
Then they should have brought a better team to Summer Tour.
They should have been Summer Tour should be weighted the same as Lead and Bite. That's like I don't see how that
doesn't change. Like, we ran the ranking that didn't change anything.
You think the Gentle still wouldn't have got in with the okay.
They didn't get any wins at Elite Invite. Like they didn't. Yes, they probably would have beaten Jet Set at Central Regionals, so that spot would have been different. That's the only thing. But they still, if they came to with the same Summer Tour roster they came with, if they went to regionals with that roster, that's probably the same type of team they would have brought to there. Jet Set probably could have beaten them. They didn't come with a really strong team, so I don't know.
It's such a huge demand for a team like Gentle to go to Elite Invite with a strong team, go to Summer Tour, and you have people on national teams. You have other tournaments. Do they participate at Tom's or Windmill or what was before the kind of regular season events? That like I think we're stretching players a lot, and I think something you mentioned was teams have to stack lines and have to play all the time the whole season with their best players on the field, like every point. I think that's a bad thing as well. I think Ranelagh talked about that, how they couldn't really at any tournament give opportunities for the bottom of the roster to actually participate. I mean, in these tournaments, yeah.
I mean, of course, the women's division not the same, but East Block did that. They played a tournament where they gave their young players a lot of shots at Vienna Spring Break. They knew Summer Tour counted more. Then they came out and qualified with a really strong Summer Tour result. That is a path you can do. Ranelagh came out and lost to Bristol. They lost to the 31st ranked team.
Yeah, and like the year they won,
it wasn't because they didn't get a rank. It wasn't because they had to play the rankings. They just lost a game. That's why they're not in. Like
the year they won EUCF, they lost to Bristol at UK Nationals and came fourth, if you remember. And went to the EUCF ranked 17th. So if there's only 16 teams at EUCF that year, Ranelagh wouldn't have qualified.
Yeah,
losing to Bristol. So like, in theory, that game, like Ranelagh could definitely lose to Bristol if it was UK Nats. So that's like Ranelagh don't have anything to complain about.
You're arguing about 16 bids versus 24 bids. If they had done that, then they wouldn't have gone. Like you said,
no, that's my point. I'm backing up your point. I'm saying that Ranelagh losing to Bristol,
not accustomed to that.
Ranelagh losing to Bristol was their own demise. But if you're Gentle looking at Bristol winning a 4-team tournament and only having to win 2 games in qualifying, and you're gone to Elite Invite and done really well. Well, maybe really well, but we're competitive.
They came last place.
they were competitive. They had a lot of
they were
universe point
competitive in their
losses,
games. But you're the one who tells me that winning games is what matters. They won a game against Lefoto and that's it. And then they didn't.
The best 8 teams in Europe, like they
Agreed.
won one game
Agreed.
and were in universe point losses to several of those teams. Like
True.
They are clearly a top 8 team in my books and showed that during the season and somehow have ended up not qualifying.
Yeah, and maybe they would have
Bristol
done
have to just win 2 games. Like they
but
got
like
an
I
easy
said,
path.
if they came to EUCR with the same roster they brought to Summer Tour, where they beat Echo on Universe, and their only win was against Echo and Frisbee Club Barcelona, those are the only 2 wins they got at their Summer Tour. Then they probably wouldn't have come out of the Central region against Bad Skid, Wall City, Heidi's, Hrut, and Jet Set.
Yeah, like maybe they should have just not, if they can't send people to these tournaments, not gone to Elite Invite and sent their strong team to Summer Invite. Like that would probably be a better way of going about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, they sent a good team to Elite Invite. They should have sent a stronger team to Summer Tour.
That's what I'm saying, is they shouldn't have not bothered with Elite Invite and save their legs for Summer Invite. Like it's actually if you're trying to qualify, focusing on that is way better than focusing on the Elite Invite, by the sounds of it. Certainly if you're a lower ranked team. I don't know. Yeah. I'm happy to vent. Thank you for letting me vent on this.
We got you in there. All right. I think we've gone an hour and 40 minutes. I've heard there's one good question in the chat. Is this the one from good old Benjamin? Can you put it on the screen there, Nemo? Which one you want here? The way it is, it's bad to have many ranked games. The algorithm isn't about winning many games. It's just about letting the right ones count. It's better to play the system than to play the games. I'm a bit confused by what you're saying here.
No, I was saying this earlier as well. It's the nature of the flexibility. It's your ability to, like, the more flexible the system is, the easier it is to bend the rules. So if you wanted to, you could not bother with a wild card and try and just skirt around if you throw a game, it doesn't count kind of thing, and just engineer the most successful. It's the kind of stuff you know for a fact certain players like Dundalk are sitting there trying to work out what tournaments do I go to, what single games do I set up to have the easiest route to it.
And it is a reality. The single game thing, I think we have to look at. The ZoomX thing is being sent by an appeal board. It's been discussed by many people. But in terms of engineering your way, that's why we have teams apply for their summer tours and spring tours blind, just based on availability and where they can travel to. And then they don't know who's going to be there. So we don't let them game the system. And then we allocate based on last year's finish and about interest and try to keep the travel costs down and, balance it. It's a huge puzzle trying to figure it out. But I agree with Liam that no matter what we do, it seems like there's going to be it's going to be really hard to make sure that each summer tour has top teams in it. I thought that the Wrocław summer tour was going to be the one that didn't have any top 16 teams in it, but it turned out that the Hornsild one was, and Orebro ended up being top 13 in the end. So it's tough to predict based on last year's results, but that's also a difficulty with the EUCR system because you're also giving bids to regions based on last year's results. So no matter what you do, no system is perfect. We don't have a sport where people can go out and each team can play each other once, like you do in a Premier League or something like that, and then you have a really fair thing. You have to come up with some way to rank teams and qualify teams. And anyways, I think we've heard lots of opinions. This has been a fun little end of the chat show. I think it's good to add some spice. Thanks for coming on, Liam. I do really appreciate it. Thanks, Lorcan. Thanks everybody for coming out. We will be looking at the competition committee, at the system, and thinking of ways to tweak it. We're probably not going back to regionals. Sorry, Liam, but we're looking at other ways to tweak the system. I think this was an exciting end of the season. So it definitely was that. At least people are talking about it. We've never had a panel show of 3 people during the EUCR system to talk about it at the end of the season. I'll tell you that much.
There's an old Oscar Wilde quote. There's only one thing worse than being talked about around town, and that's not being talked about. So look, generating conversation.
All right, so Lorcan, you want to get us out the old way? Liam, thanks for Liam and Ravi. Thanks for Lorcan Murray. Go for it. Come on.
Oh, fine. A little bit of a dial back. Well, thank you very much on behalf of Ravi, Liam, and myself. The Eurozone trifecta in its glory days. Of course, big shout out to Sean for still going it. Thank you for joining us for this. We will see you all at the end of next month for some fantastic tournaments. It's been a wonderful time, and we will you later. Are we off?
Oh, we're not off.